Hello and welcome to Endurance Minded. It's the podcast that aims to redefine what it means to reach our full potential by exploring how movement and mindset impacts our lives and how we can all work to show up as the best versions of ourselves. I'm your host, Taylor Thomas, founder at TEC, and before we get started, I've got an all call. If you're a coach or an entrepreneur in the health and fitness industry who's trying to grow your business without burning out, I want to personally invite you to apply for the Growth Circle. The Growth Circle is our business accelerator program at TEC, and it's designed specifically to serve providers like you in the health and fitness industry. People who are incredible at what they do, but they need a proven framework and real support to actually scale. Let's be real, running a coaching business can feel like a grind. You're juggling programming and client communication, marketing, admin work, and somehow you're still trying to grow your business. That's where the Growth Circle comes in. Inside the program, we help you nail down your ideal client and get really clear on what your offer is. We help you build a consistent lead gen process so you're not wondering where your next client comes from. We help you improve your sales skills without feeling salesy. And most importantly, create systems and support so that you're not doing it alone. You'll be a part of a driven community of other business owners in this space who get it. We host regular group calls, team intensives, mastermind sessions to make sure you're never stuck trying to figure it out in a silo. So if you're tired of winging it, if you're tired of trying to do it all by yourself, to recreate the wheel, figure out what levers to pull, what's broken and what's not, if you're ready to turn your passion into a business that actually works for you, I want to invite you to apply. You can find the link to the Growth Circle in our show notes. And I want you to really think about what's best for you and your business. I want you to think about how your business can really make an impact on the industry and how it can give you the life that you're excited about and make the money that you deserve, working with the clients that you love, spending time investing in the things that you care about and you're passionate about. So if this is a problem you're committed to solving and you want to take your business to the next level, again, click the link in the show notes. I can't wait to hear from you. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Endurance Minded. Couldn't be more excited to have you back with us today. And we're going to talk about the cost of holding on. We're going to be diving into identity, growth, and how you develop the endurance to hold on. And what I want you to think about to set the stage here is, what if the thing that is keeping you stuck isn't what you're doing, but it's who you think you are? It's the identity that you might be trapped in. It's the identity that you're holding on to. It's the things, the experiences, the mindset that you have brought to where you're at right now. And that might need to be the thing that changes. We talk a lot about, and we have talked a lot about on this very podcast, the need to develop systems, routines, habits, discipline, specifically discipline in the absence of motivation, and how if you want to be someone different, you have to do different things. But those actions, those things might not be what's keeping us stuck. We can do all the right things. We can have the discipline. We can have the motivation, the drive, the commitment. We can put new pieces of the puzzle in place. But if we are not in alignment from an identity perspective with what's required to take full advantage of those pieces of the puzzle, then we continue to be stuck. And I have personally dealt with this and wrestled with it and grappled with it many, many times in my life, be it through the lens of athleticism, as my athletic identity has needed to evolve, as it's been forced to evolve, through whether that's injury or whether that's my priorities in life change, whether that's in a season of injury when I've been forced to approach my athleticism different because my body wasn't able to do things. I've also experienced that through business. when the person that I thought I was, or the person that I had hoped that I wanted and needed to be in my career, was actually holding me back. It wasn't the person that was actually going to take me where I needed to go. The high driver, the outperformer, the entrepreneur, the person who outworks everyone in the room, the person who is dedicated to a fault, who is results oriented at all costs. That individual had to change. I had to let those parts of that identity go at so many instances to recognize my full potential and to continue to build and grow in my career. And so I want to first, with so many of the conversations that we have on this podcast, I want you to know this comes from my own experiences. This comes from the work that I do in lots of different areas in my career, conversations that I have with other individuals, things that I've recognized and helped others navigate, feedback that we get on this very podcast, things that people are struggling to grapple with. And so the goal here, as always, is to flatten the learning curve. It's to provide an opportunity for you to reset, reframe, and walk away with some tactical guidance that you can deploy in your life to help you recognize what your full potential can look like and move a little bit closer to that today than you were yesterday. And I think there's so much in this, and I'm not going to attempt to unpack everybody's specific version of this, but the fact of the matter is that growth stalls when we won't evolve who we are and not just what we do. So when we're unwilling to adapt and change who we are and who we need to be, again, that's in opposition to or juxtaposed against just the actions required to do different things. That's really what's going to get in our way. And I think, it's the hardest thing. It's the thing that I've felt the most resistance personally. It's easy to reorient ourselves to some different task, to some different skill. And, I've heard this so many times when I ask people, this is what this path forward looks like. This is what I think the opportunity in front of you can be. And then so often the response is, well, what books can I read to get good at that? Who can I talk to? What podcasts can I listen to? What YouTube videos can I watch? And so, not that those are bad things, but again, those are tasks. Those are things that we can do. We can sink our teeth into that feel like progress. And they might very well elicit some response. But again, if our identity doesn't adapt and we're not willing to change our identity or don't recognize the need to change our identity as we continue to develop those skills, deploy those new tools, take advantage of those resources, then we're still going to be stuck. And so I want to talk first. Let's just define what identity traps are and what they can look like. So they're roles, they're labels, they're behaviors that we use to define ourselves, even when they have outlived their usefulness. So the trap is that this thing that we're clinging to, that the way that we describe ourselves no longer supports who we are and how we want to show up in the world. No longer supports who we are and what we want to accomplish, the things that we want to do, the people that we want to surround ourselves with. And what that can sound like is, I'm the grinder, right? I gave you a personal example. This is very much, has been me and something truthfully that I still kind of struggle to rectify in my own life is, I'm the person that can work. Right. I'm the grinder. I'm the person that, it doesn't matter the hours. It doesn't matter the commitment. I'll always show up. And if that's not serving you, if that's not taking you to where you want to go, then that identity now is a trap. Also things like, I'm the person who's always available. Right. We see this a lot in business, specifically for the coaches out there listening, the service providers in the health and wellness, health and fitness industry. I'm the person, I'm the always available coach. I'm the always available, insert your job title there. And, again, fine until it isn't fine. Good until it no longer is in service of the business that you want, of the life that you want, of your ability to scale your time and value your energy and protect your bandwidth. We also, from an athletic perspective, I'm the fastest in my group. Man, does this one change, right? I've been this person, right? I'm the fastest. I'm the best climber. I'm the best. And then things change. Your priorities shift. You age. We're all, none of us are getting out of here without aging some. And the way that we describe our athleticism and the way that we attribute and ascribe the value of athleticism and how we show up in that certainly can be a trap as well. So here's why these things are so sticky to begin with. First of all, when we have a strong identity, it offers certainty. It also, and this is the big one, it strokes our ego, right? It provides ego validation, and it really gives us a sense of safety. It gives us something to lean on because it's something we can trust. It's a space that we know. It's something that we're accustomed to. We've built systems and processes and support networks in our life to prop up this identity, and so it feels safe. And the reason that we resist that is because it doesn't feel safe to branch outside of that, right? That's a new thing. It's a new person that we have to be. And changing our identity just really threatens our relationship and the routines that we've built around it. So literally the bedrock of our lives, the routines, the way we move through our day, as well as the relationships we have are largely built on an association with this identity. And so it becomes really hard to make these shifts. I'm going to give you some real life examples of what this actually sounds like in a few different areas. Let's talk about it through the lens of athleticism. So, it's the athlete that is afraid to scale back, to rest, to recover, to pull back on volume despite chronic fatigue. It's the injured athlete who is unable or unwilling or is really struggling to pull back and to focus on the things that are going to move the needle, the things they know are important, despite continuing to perpetuate this injury, this nagging thing that just won't go away, but they won't give it enough time and rest or shift their energy and resources into this other thing that they know is going to make them better because they're stuck in this one way of doing things. Again, it's that routine, it's the relationships there. It's the business owner, it's the career-driven individual, the high performer that's still manually holding on to tasks in their work that they should have outsourced a year ago, right? This is the way I've always done it. I'm the only one that can do this the right way. If I don't do it, no one's going to do it. If I don't do it, it's not going to be done correctly. Whatever that sounds like, right? That's an identity, right? That's who we are. We say we're the person that can do this. And so I can't give it up. I can't outsource this no matter how much it's stressing me out, no matter how much it's bogging me down. I'm not able to give this thing up. And then lastly, another example is it's, again, for the coaches listening to this, we have lots of service providers in our audience in the health and fitness, health and wellness space. It's the coach clinging to those one-to-one sessions, those unscalable tasks, the clients that are not in alignment, the people that are dragging you down, that don't value your time and energy, resources, and bandwidth. They know that other opportunities exist, but they just can't quite give it up. It's how they do things. It's how you've always showed up for people. You've always given your time, and it's no longer serving you. But again, that's part of your identity. So real world examples there. If you can find yourself in any version of that, then I want you to listen up because we're gonna keep diving deep here, and we're gonna walk away with some really actionable ways that you can shift identity in your own life so it can actually begin to serve you. So I want to talk about identity shifts as a form of endurance. A few podcasts ago, we talked about endurance as a life skill. If you haven't listened to that podcast, certainly go back and listen to that one. It will add some color to this, but it is not a necessity. But identity shifts is something that really requires endurance. Endurance is not just about our aerobic capacity, but it's about our ability to continue to show up, to stay committed, and to recognize that that it is about the long game. It is about the pursuit. And so endurance, it's not about staying the same. It's about adapting over time. If we think about this just purely from the sense of what is endurance, we can't possibly stay the same, right? We have to adapt. We have to keep going. We have to get more resilient. We have to build more stamina. We have to continue to endure. And that's very much what it looks like when we're evolving our identity. I want to pose a reframe here, a bit of an equation is that evolving identity is like or equal to a performance gain in your life, right? So it's not just, again, endurance is not just language applied to sport, but when we evolve our identity, or when we get comfortable with the real truth that our identity has to be something that is constantly evolving, that gives us a leg up in life. Just like in sport, when we increase our endurance, we maximize our performance, or we see performance gains. It is the same thing across all areas of your life, as you're going to see performance gains there as well. I want to use some parallels. I know so many of our listeners are athletes, or are engaged in a consistent athletic practice, however you define that. And so if you think about what this really looks like, I'm going to compare it to like a zone 2 versus a zone 5 training. So zone 2 is that kind of low and slow. It's that aerobic effort. It's conversational. And zone 5 is a sprint. And so if we look at kind of zone 2 versus zone 5, growth often happens when things are slow. And they're uncomfortable, but it's not intense output. And so when we tie that back to an identity evolution, this is something that's low and slow. It's a zone 2 effort. It's a slow roast. It's not necessarily going to be this all-out sprint. It's going to take time to put these pieces together. And more importantly, it's going to require not just physical endurance, but it's going to require emotional endurance. And I think this is the real caveat that makes this identity shift kind of stand out, and truthfully, I think makes it so challenging for most of us, is because it's not just about, like I talked about, that physical input. It requires emotional agility as well, and it requires developing emotional endurance. And so there's a few ways that's going to show up. One is it's going to require you to tolerate ambiguity while you're learning these new identity forms, right? So you're not quite sure how this is going to manifest. You're not quite sure how this is supposed to show up, what it looks like to move through your days and your life with this new evolving identity. And so you're going to have to tolerate some ambiguity here, and that's going to throw you off, right? That's that emotional agility that I talked about. It's going to require you to deal with grief or loss of your status and of the things that you are familiar with. So again, we're going to shed that old identity because it's no longer serving us. But while we do that, we're going to have to lose, or we're going to have to grieve the loss of the comfort that we felt with that old identity, right? We knew that person. We trusted them. We felt safe when we were that person. That's why we built that identity around us. Again, it's so much of that is a protection mechanism. So we're going to have to grieve the loss of that person. And that's going to be a real emotional hit. And then we're going to have to understand and deal with the discomfort of showing up without having mastered the new version of ourself yet. So very much some emotional agility here is going to be required, because while we understand this person or get to know this person, we're going to have to show up and just kind of think on our feet, right? We don't have it all figured out yet. We're understanding or working to understand what it actually looks and feels like. We're trying it on, right? We got half the suit on, but we're still working to put our arms through the sleeves. And so while we're doing that, there is a discomfort of showing up without a sense of mastery, without a sense of full competency in this new identity. And that's a very real thing that we're just going to have to settle into. Again, endurance is so much a part of this. While we work this muscle, while we put in the sets and reps required, we're just going to have to settle into the fact that it's not a sprint. It's going to take a little bit of time. We're going to need some repetition to make sure that we have this sorted out. One of the biggest ways this shows up, and this is kind of the 30,000 foot view, but one of the biggest places this shows up is that when we move from being a doer to a leader. So if you are someone who identifies as a leader, or you are in on a career trajectory or career path where you would like to continue to show up as a leader in whatever capacity, in whatever industry, however you want to define that, it could certainly be a leader in your family, a leader on your team, a leader in your career, in your organization, in your business. But shifting from a doer to a leader is really the hardest leap. It requires new language. It requires us to allocate our time differently. There's new ways of being seen. And so this is one of the most prevalent ways that we see this identity shift really manifest, is going from a doer, or what I like to call a technician, to a leader. And that shift is hard. It requires time and energy. Arguably, I think it's one that's never fully complete. We're always learning and develop. Leadership is the hardest job that you will ever take on, and it's one that I'm not sure any of us will ever truly master. But that's one of the places I see that show up the most. So hopefully that helps. I want to provide a bit of a framework there, and now we're going to move into understanding signs that you have outgrown your identity. Specifically, I want to talk about 3 signs that you've outgrown your identity right now. So I want you to tune in. I want you to listen up, and I want you to work to recognize yourself or find yourself in any of these 3 signs. If you hear anything that connects with you and who you are, then this is a sign that you need to work to shift your identity. Again, you need to take on that endurance-based identity shift. Settle in, understand what that is. I'm going to walk you through some specifics of what that actually sounds like here in a little bit. But the key idea here is that you don't need to hit crisis to know that it's time to evolve. So my hope is that in highlighting these 3 signs that you've outgrown your identity, I can catch you or help you self-identify before you hit crisis mode. Because what happens when you've come too far, ask me how I know, is that it becomes even harder to unravel this identity, right? It becomes even harder to back off of who we are, how we show up, because we've continued to really beat that, right? We've like stomped it into who we are. We've beat the proverbial dead horse, and it's really hard to get rid of that. So I want to hopefully catch you before you hit crisis mode, and help you evolve before you get too deep. First sign is that you're carrying resentment towards your own schedule. So the life that you've designed is no longer one that you want to show up for. I'm going to say that again. So the life that you've designed is no longer one that you want to show up for. And what that means is that how we're presenting in the world, the people that we've aligned ourselves with, the job that we're doing, how we're expected to communicate and operate in the world on a daily basis is no longer in alignment with what brings us joy. And there is truly no clearer sign of a need to shift our identity and to step into an elevated, different, evolved version of ourselves than that right there. If you wake up and on the whole, you resent your schedule, you resent the things that you have to do on a daily basis, then this is the first sign that it is time to shift into a new identity. More specifically, like I said earlier, It's a sign that you've outgrown your existing identity. So I want to be clear here. What I'm saying is, I'm not saying that who you are is wrong. I'm saying that when you reach these places that you have outgrown who you are, you've outgrown your existing identity, and there's an opportunity to step into, like I said, an elevated version of who you are right now. And that's a very different thing than who you are being wrong, or who you are being broken, or not the person you're supposed to be. It just means that you've outgrown it. And when we are presented with opportunities for growth, there is no better gift than continuing to have the opportunity for growth. And I think that we all have that, right? We all have that, with the ability to align with ever-changing, ever-evolving identities like we're talking about today. So the second sign that you've outgrown your identity is you get defensive when challenged. So you shut down or you get reactive when someone suggests a new way of doing something. Again, this is a safety mechanism. So you're clinging to the old ways of doing things. You're clinging to those systems and processes, those resources, and those habits. And that's because that feels safe. And so when someone offers up another way of doing things, another lens through which you can look at something, you get defensive because it's scary, right? You're fighting off that and resisting that change. And so if you find yourself getting defensive when challenged, I want you to look at that as another potential sign that there is some growth opportunity available to you. And the third sign that you have outgrown your identity is that success feels hollow or exhausting. So you're hitting your goals, but you feel detached. You're tired, you're uninspired, and you're executing on an outdated vision, right? So you're moving, you're getting things done, but it doesn't feel like it's stacking towards the thing that you really want, right? It feels like the vision that you once had is no longer applicable. Like I said, it's an outdated vision. And so if you're checking the boxes, if you're getting it done, you're still moving the needle, but it doesn't feel fulfilling. If it feels exhausting, if it feels hollow, you get to the finish line, it doesn't quite feel like what you thought it was going to feel like, then I want you to really think about that. And I've had this happen for myself, right? I get to the end of the race, committing to that thing felt like it was going to be the thing that was going to solve my problems. It was the thing that was going to help me feel fulfilled. Get to the end of the race. Well, what happens? There's another race on the other side of it. There's another goal to commit to. There's another thing to do. And so it felt hollow, right? Get to the end of the business, build the team, exit the business, reach the goals, hit the KPIs, all the things. And what happens? It doesn't solve your problems. You don't feel markedly different. It doesn't feel as celebratory as you thought it would. You get the raise and that doesn't make you feel any better. You buy the new house, you get the car, you take the vacation, you do the thing that you think you've been working towards, and it feels hollow, right? So success, it's not doing it for you. And so this is another clear indicator that there's an opportunity here to shift into an upgraded identity. And one of the things that I like to do is, I'm actually not a huge journal person. I like to write, I like to reflect, I like to share my ideas, but I do want to offer a journal prompt. This is something that's been helpful for me. So if you've heard yourself in any of these three signs that I've provided, that you may have outgrown your existing identity, then the journal prompt I want to provide for you is, what am I doing out of habit or obligation that no longer aligns with who I'm becoming? And I think this one's really really simple. Again, this doesn't have to be a huge lift. It just provides an opportunity for a bit of introspection. Again, the prompt is, what am I doing out of habit or obligation that no longer aligns with who I'm becoming? And you can write this down. You can think about it. You can take a walk. You can, roll it through your mind when you're going for a run, whatever that is. But I think this for me is just a good check-in. It's a good benchmark to say, what am I doing right now that I've just kept doing? It's just habit, or I feel obligated. I don't know why I do it. It doesn't particularly feel fulfilling. It doesn't feel aligned. It's not exciting. And does that really align with who I want to become? Does it align with my goals? Does it align with my vision? And that's just a good check. And I think that can be just a really important way to kind of recognize, again, before we get into crisis, that there's an opportunity for growth here. So we talked about the 3 signs. Again, if you hear yourself in any of those, then I hope that you will stick with me, because now we're going to talk about some action. So I'm going to give you a framework for how to let go of an old identity and how to rebuild a new one that actually is in alignment. And what I want you to remember is that identity shifts are built through conscious, consistent action, not some revelation, right? And I think when we talk about our identity, when we talk about things like this, we get pulled into almost this kind of rom-com version of it, where we have this spark of like, oh my God, this is who I am, or this is who I'm meant to be, or this is, and that may or may not happen to some people. But in my experience, from just a tactical person who's moving through the world and trying to accomplish big goals and reach their full potential, then my recognition of this and my pursuit of it, as I've had to evolve and change my own identity or shift my own identity, is that these shifts are really built just through like a conscious understanding, checking ourselves on where we're at and who we are and who we need to be, and then consistent action that takes us in the direction of those things. And so there's a 3 R's framework that I built that helps me do this. And I'm going to share them with you, again, in hopes that it flattens the learning curve and you can walk away today and start to, again, take that conscious and consistent action. The first one is recognize. So start tracking areas where you feel friction or resistance, right? So let's not be oblivious to it. Let's not pretend like it's not happening, but let's start to recognize. Again, this is the conscious piece. And just make note of them. You can write them down. You can, whatever. They can be stored in your brain. But start tracking the areas where you feel friction or resistance in your day. Again, this is the things where you're resenting your schedule, where you're not happy with the work, where the success doesn't feel fulfilling. So where are these areas of friction or resistance? And I want you to document them. Then I want you to ask yourself, what identity am I protecting here? So when you feel those times of friction or resistance, I want you to ask yourself, what is the identity that I'm protecting here? Right? Is it the person that, again, has to outwork everybody, that has to grind, that has to be the smartest person in the room, that has to have all the answers? Is it the person that's the fastest, or is it the person that, grinds the hardest? Whomever that is, what identity are you protecting? And then I want you to notice if and when you're using phrases like the following. I've always done it this way, right? We talked about that earlier. So you're protecting this because it's just the way I've always done it. And if I'm being honest, I'm just afraid of change. I'm afraid of what it looks like if I'm not the one doing this, if I'm not the one steering the ship. Another phrase is, it's just who I am. Jesus, I mean, this one haunted me forever, right? That's just who I am. I just work. That's all I can do, right? It's the skill that I can bring to the table. I'm probably not the smartest person. I don't have all the right ideas. I'm not the visionary in the room, but I can outwork everyone. So I'm just going to do that. It's just who I am. I'm a worker. And lastly, the phrase, I wouldn't be me if I didn't blank. I wouldn't be me if I didn't run 100 miles every season. It wouldn't be me if I didn't outwork everybody. It wouldn't be me if I didn't show up for the group right every Saturday morning. I wouldn't be, right? Whatever it is, I wouldn't be me if what? So I want you to notice if you're using phrases similar to that, and I want you just to recognize them. And then we're going to move to the second R in this 3-part framework, which is reframe. So now we're going to shift the internal story. We're going to reframe the internal story, the narrative that we're telling ourselves, from loss to evolution. Right? So we're going to reframe that narrative to, I'm not losing my identity. My identity is evolving. I have the opportunity to evolve. Right? So I'm going to go from, if I stop doing X, I'm no longer valuable, to, I've proven that I can do X. Now I'm building on what's next. Right? So recognize the reframe there. Recognize the subtle shift in language. This is going to happen internally first. Before you vocalize any of this, this is the reframe. This is the restructure of the narrative for your internal dialogue. Again, we're going to shift from the internal story from loss to evolution. Then I want you to use past self versus future self. So there's some visualizations here that are helpful. And the one that I like, again, the goal here, you can do this whenever. I do this when I'm exercising. I think it's easy. It doesn't have to be, again, whatever works for you. I'm pro meditation. I'm pro visualization. but I want it to be usable. And so wherever you're at in the spectrum of individuals that leverage and deploy this type of tool, I want you just to think about and visualize, who do I need to become to reach the next level of impact, sustainability, and fulfillment in my life? Those 3 things: impact. So how am I positively impacting the world in alignment with who I want to become and who I want to be? How is it going to be sustainable for me? Meaning, can I enjoy myself? Can I continue to do this? Can I shed some of the habits and the routines that are not serving me? And can I find fulfillment in them? And so I just want you to think about that, right? Visualize who that person is. Who do you need to become to reach the next level? Again, the 3 things are impact, sustainability, and fulfillment. And the third R is replace. So now you're going to start to do things differently. So there is an action orientation here, right? We're going to start showing up with new actions, even if they're small. Because if you want to do different things, right, there is a different orientation here. You can't just continue to wail on the old habits, the old routines, the old actions, and expect some new identity to emerge from that just because you visualize something, right? We do have to take some action. So I want you to start showing up with new actions, even if they're small. And this is a key piece, right? It's not that big aha moment. It's that consistent, conscious effort. It's small actions and the steps required to move us gradually forward. So one of the best ways to start doing that is I want you to say no when you would usually say yes, right? Pick a thing. What's something that you can shed? Something that you can let go. I want you to say no when you would usually say yes. Next, I want you to delegate a task. What can it be? Pick something. This can be in all areas of your life. I know we think about task delegation specific to work. This can be anything, right? This could be conversations with your family. Maybe you're feeling drugged down by the chores and the tasks that you've just been doing in your household, and that's keeping you from something else. Is there an opportunity for communication with, hey, it would really be great if I could focus my energy here and you could help me in this other area. I know that I've traditionally done this thing, but can you own this so I can go do this other thing? Of course, this applies at work, right? I know that I've always owned this thing. I know that I've done this thing and it's largely been because it's fear-based and I'm worried if I let it go that I won't be valuable or no one else can do it like I can do it, or whatever the story is you're telling yourself. I want you to delegate the thing. And next, I want you to try a new structure that better aligns with what you want for yourself in the future. Now, this structure could apply in lots of different areas. This could be a training plan, so the structural aspects of how you engage in your athleticism and your fitness. It could be a business model, so the structural aspects of how you do your work, how you deploy the thing that you do out in the world. But I want you to think about a new version of this, a new structure that aligns more clearly with your future vision, the person that you want to be. And then I want you to create new identity-based habits. So we're going to do some shifting here. Again, there's some real tasks that have to be done. We're replacing what you used to do with new things that are going to yield different results. So what identity-based habits sound like are, I'm the type of person who protects their energy. I'm a person who builds things that last. I'm a person that doesn't have to show up and do everything. I'm a person that doesn't have to work the most hours this week. I'm a person that doesn't have to be the fastest in the group. I'm a person that doesn't have to train the most. I'm the person, right? I want you to really start to create these identity-based habits, these things that align with the person that you want to be, right? So let's do a recap here. What is the 3R framework for how to let go and rebuild? Quickly. First, we're going to recognize. We're going to start tracking areas where we feel resistance and friction. Next is we're going to reframe. So we're going to shift that internal story from one of loss. Again, I'm losing who I am and what matters most to me, to I'm evolving into a new individual, someone who can actually show up and actually accomplish more, actually reach my goals, feel fulfilled, make sure it's sustainable, find joy, the list goes on. And then the third R is I'm going to replace. So I'm actually going to start to do some different things, right? I'm going to build new habits. I'm going to take some different actions. I'm going to delegate. I'm going to say no where I usually say yes. I'm going to try some different structural components that are going to support who I am and what I want to be. And when we do that, we'll really start to see a change, right? I really want you to do this. This is not just a nice to have. This is not just conjecture. This is something that I've seen show up in such a massive way in my own life, right? Small, consistent action leads to truly a new identity. It leads to your ability to show up in a different way. You don't have to just be the person. You don't have to just plateau. You don't have to just continue to cling to a narrative and to an identity that actually doesn't make you feel that good. I used to be that person. I guess I'll just always be that person. I get right. Like, find what that sounds like in your own life and just ask yourself, like, does that truly feel good? Or am I just doing it because it's comfortable? Am I just doing it because it requires some discomfort and it requires some effort to actually move things forward? And if I'm being honest, that just scares the shit out of me. Because truthfully, it's just not that scary. Specifically with the framework that I just gave you. It can be something that doesn't require tremendous effort. And I promise you that you'll actually see results in an outsized way in a relatively short period of time versus how long you've probably held on to an identity that doesn't serve you. Again, I've been here. I get it. I'm not talking at you. I'm trying to flatten the learning curve so that you can move the needle forward and actually evolve into a version of yourself that you're excited about. That's what I want for you. So in a final reflection here, let's bring it all together. What I want you to remember is that endurance isn't about who can stay the same the longest. It's about who can evolve with integrity over time. So if you just settle in and you just commit to the same version, that's not true endurance. That's stubbornness. True endurance that facilitates emotional resilience, emotional agility, a full spectrum of experiences and skill sets that really captures the human condition. That true endurance is about that person who can evolve with integrity over time. And the reason that I include integrity is because what that means is we stay true to ourselves. We're not evolving into somebody else because somebody told us to. We're not evolving to keep up with the Joneses. We're evolving because we're staying true to ourselves. We know that we're capable of more. We know that we could be happier or more fulfilled. So we're not going to be stubborn. We're going to deploy that true endurance, and we're going to evolve with integrity over time. So I want to invite you into a little bit of reflection here. So the first question I want to ask or pose is, what version of yourself are you ready to retire? What version is just not feeling good? What's not serving you? What narrative is played out? What thing are you tired and fed up with describing about yourself? Right? What version of yourself are you ready to retire? And next, I want you to truly think about this. If you got rid of the fear, if you got rid of the resistance, if you got rid of the friction, if you got rid of the concern around what other people think and how scary it is and where your value proposition lies, if you got rid of all of that, I want you to think about what's waiting on the other side of the release, of the evolution. What could truly be there? And I think you'll find, if you're honest with yourself, that it's way better than where you're at now. I've been there. When I was honest with myself, I was like, well, whatever work is required to become this evolved version of myself and this new identity is worth it, because this isn't it. This can't be it. I'm not feeling it here. Right? So a couple of next steps, a couple of things that I want you to try out. One is to reflect on who your past self is. And I want you to write your past self a thank you letter. Right? Again, say it in your head, write it down, whatever works for you, but just reflect on how the person that you are, your past self, has helped you get to where you're at. But again, where you want to go, you got to be someone else. Right? So we can't hold on to that past self. But I want you to recognize that the skills that you acquired, the mindset, all the things that helped you to get to where you're at right now. So it doesn't mean that past version of you, that old identity, is worthless. That's the person that got you to where you're at right now. And so we want to be grateful for that person. Right? Again, we're evolving. We're not losing. And then, if it's helpful, I'm going to put a link to the show note in the show notes. I write a weekly newsletter called The Business of Coaching. We talk a lot about this kind of stuff. And as you guys hopefully know by now, I only want to provide resources that are helpful. So I'm going to put a link to that in the show notes. If you're interested in more of this type of information, we get into really specific, granular detail, specific to entrepreneurship and business. It's free. New article comes out every Friday morning. It's something that I provide just to hopefully give more value out into the world. And so I'm just going to put that in there. And if you're interested in going deeper into this type of stuff, it's free to subscribe. Again, a short read, couple minutes every Friday morning, just to start your day, give you a new lens through which to think about some of these parts and pieces of business. And there's a lot of mindset stuff in there. There's a lot of tactical pieces when it comes to sales, acquisition, structure, operations. It's kind of a view into the operational entrepreneur part of who I am and what I do. And so, again, just as an added layer and an added resource, I'm going to put that there, and I want to invite you to check it out and subscribe if you find it valuable, and that's the type of stuff that you're into. So, as always, I truly hope this was valuable. I hope that you walk away today with an understanding of what it can look like to not lose your old identity, but to evolve into a new one, and know that what is on the other side of that is truly going to be what's best, and that there is a real cost to holding on to an old identity. And I want you to see the opportunity for what it looks like to step into that new one, so you're not paying that cost and you can step into your full potential. So as always, last ask here, please share this episode with someone that you think would find it valuable. Forward it from your favorite podcast platform to anyone that you think would find value in this. It means a lot to me. Rate this podcast. Let me know what you think. And then subscribe. New episodes every other Tuesday. We are on our 7th year of this podcast. It's incredible. The community is amazing, and I will continue to put my best foot forward and provide value for our community. So if you could rate, subscribe, and share Endurance Minded, it would mean the world. And until then, I'll see you next time on Endurance Minded.